Hey, Craig Martelle coming to you live. It's Wednesday, everybody. Wednesday. Coming to you live from the subarctic where it's kind of dark out. How about that? A new and interesting thing. Today we're going to talk about beta readers. We have John Ashmore trying to do damage control because we did have 3 beta readers, but two, the technology has gone past 2 of them. BeLive isn't necessarily as smooth as it could be. But we're here. We have Erika Everest coming to us from Ireland and John Ashmore coming to us from the great state of
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. So Punxsutawney John is here, and Erika, tell us where are you now and what are you doing?
I am sitting in my home and talking to you guys when I should be working, but you know, this is more important.
Yeah, it's 3 in the afternoon. It's the middle of Erika's workday there. What about you, John?
I'm sitting in the dining room, so just came back in from walking the dog.
Good deal. Good deal. I have. We had posted this earlier, and one thing. Oh my God! It ate my things. Let me check it. I have the questions on the other screen, so that's why I'll be referring to these. This was about a beta panel that we're going to have for 20 Books Vegas, but half the people have had to pull out from the panel, and I think I'm probably going to end up canceling the panel. So we thought it's best to talk about beta readers as part of the CNM show. And one of the questions that we want to start off with is, what is an alpha reader compared to a beta reader, compared to a proofreader, compared to an ARC reader? Erika.
I was just going to say, let John answer that one. So, I mean, for those of you who know Greek, alpha and beta are first and second. The idea being that your alpha reader is the very first person who looks at your work. And if you're familiar with the concept of the minimum viable product that we have here in 20 Books, they're the person who's most likely going to be able to tell you whether you're on track or wasting your time. Beta readers more likely come in when you have a full manuscript done to make sure the whole thing flows well together, as opposed to, is your concept sound? Then proofreading happens later on, after editing, after beta reading and edits have been done. It's about checking for typos. Not about commas and grammar, because that's still part of the editing, but literally, if something got missed and there's a stray typing word, that's proofreading right at the end. And then you have a final product. ARC reader, which is ARC, Advanced Reader Copy, or Advanced Review Copy, depending. Those are where you give out your book before it goes live to people in hopes of getting reviews that will go up on Amazon or whatever platform to build a social proof for your book. Now, they're not your beta readers, because your beta reader product isn't complete yet and it's still in development. Your ARC reader, you want to give them the book that the public will get, because that's what they're going to comment on. If you're giving them a book riddled with typos that hasn't gone through proofreading yet, you're likely to get a review that says, poorly edited. And that's not the book that you're actually selling, because they've seen the wrong version. So those are the distinctions. It's possible the same person could do every role, but they are different roles and have different purposes and come at different points in the timeline.
Do you have anything to add to that, John? I think that's pretty thorough.
No, this is very good. Thank you.
Yeah, the alpha readers, I employ the same people as alpha readers and beta readers, and that's John Ashmore is one of them. Erika has done beta reading and proofreading for me as well. The alpha readers, these folks are critical, and that's I will send 5,000 words, 10,000, maybe even 30,000 words to the alpha group, just saying, is this on track? Don't look for typos, and just, is the story on track? Is the flow right? Is there a place where it's pulling you out of the story? And just to make sure that my initial plot is going well. And then beta readers, once again, that's John on my my fiction. I will finish the story, and sometimes I'll send it to them before the editor gets to it, and sometimes after. It just depends on the timing. Like the next book, the one I'm finishing today or tomorrow, I'm going to send it to these guys ahead of time, because my editor will get it on the 24th. So I have 12 days to get it to them and get their input regarding the flow and the beats. And if I need to change anything, I'll change it, and then get that copy to my editor, as opposed to changing stuff after the copy line editor has fixed the grammar, checked for repetitive words and those kinds of things. So sometimes before, sometimes after. All depends on timing for me. So one of the biggest questions that people have had is, how do you find beta readers? John?
From my experience, it's primarily three ways. So the way I started with most of the authors that I read for was either coming up through the ranks of proofreaders and then moving from proofreader to beta, or by recommendation from another author. There's another method that people use, and that's either through Facebook or Patreon or something like that, where they solicit people. But you know, I'm most familiar with what I've done.
For me, finding the beta readers, it started with proofreaders only first, and these were the folks who took a more significant interest in my book and said, oh, by the way, here it slowed down in this part, and they showed an aptitude for a better story. Not trying to wicker me and like, oh, I didn't like this character just because. I think you should have written him this way. No, that wasn't it. We've lost Erika. Erika has dodgy internet, so that's why I'm sure she'll be back momentarily.
There she is.
There we go. Okay, let me swap you this way. Damn, what happened? I'm on the right. Let me go this way. There we go. Look at that. Hey, I have the power. But the beta readers. So the beta readers were carefully selected by their input to me from the proofreading team, and then they became my inside team. And I've had the same four for almost 3 years now. And I have 2 women, 2 men, 2 young, 2 old, 2 all different kinds of perspectives.
Who are you calling old?
Jim.
Okay.
And all different kinds of perspectives across the political spectrum, across the readership of what they like. Now, these folks like science fiction, but they're willing to read my other stuff and have provided great input on nonfiction as well as science fiction, as well as my thrillers. I think my thrillers hit well, resonated well with you guys, which was great because I'm counting on my science fiction readers to buy that. But for Erika, how did you become a beta reader for people?
Very similar to John. Like most of the people who ended up on the LMBPN review team at some point, I was reading Michael's Arthurian Gambit series. And in the author notes, he was talking about this team he'd built and, you know, how they worked together. That sounds like an awful lot of fun. And I binge read 16 books in whatever, 3 or 4 days, and said, and I was getting slightly shaky. There was no more books. So I reached out and said, do you want someone to help read? And that I joined the team. And from there, it branched out into other books as well. So I started with proofreading and then moved on to beta.
And I will tell you, me personally, I lean very heavily on what I call my insider team, because we talk about a lot of different stuff, some of it that has nothing to do with books, just because we're friends. I like these people. I trust them. I trust their opinions. And bringing them on board has helped me as a writer get better to do things. And I'm afraid of my current whip. And I said, I want to send it to you guys to get your input, just in case I need to add stuff, because a 60,000 word book, I look at it, I called it a nothing burger, which of course that's not a great marketing campaign for a story. So these guys will help me make it less of a nothing burger by the time it goes live. We have a question from Lawrence Schoen. Does Amazon get unhappy if beta readers or even proofreaders leave reviews of a novel they've worked on? And my experience is no, because when there's no direct connection, because I have people who are listed in my books as thank you to the beta readers, and they're listed there, and they've left reviews, and Amazon has not taken them away. I think the thing is, if it's an honest review left cleanly, and this is Amazon. They can leave them or take them away. It's no big deal. I have paid no one to leave a review for me on Amazon. I think the biggest thing is don't give the impression that you're paying people anyway to leave you a review. And Erika had touched on that earlier with the ARC readers. Advanced reader copy is the exact definition from Amazon, but I've also seen them refer to it as advanced reviewer copy. And it's, hey, you send a copy and you hope. And one thing that I've seen people do is, hey, this person never leaves reviews, so I've taken them off my list. Now you've made it a reward to leave a review, and Amazon is torn about that. And I know TradPub, Legacy Publishing, has significantly relied on ARCs to get 500, 1,000 reviews on a book on the first day it's released because they've got advanced copies. And this is why they have long timelines. And a lot of that stuff, it's like they're getting a reward for these reviews. So Amazon is reviewing that policy. So I don't do ARCs at all because I'll take the reviews. I want all orgasmic reviews, people who read the book originally and then said, hey, I like it, I'm going to leave a review. I always ask for reviews at the end of the end. So it's hit or miss. Does Amazon look? I don't know what Amazon. I don't know anything Amazon really does inside the halls there in Seattle or London. So all we can do is the best we can do. If somebody wants to leave a review, it's up to them. I don't do ARCs, and I ask people, could you leave a review? But I don't do anything privately like, hey, can you guys vote down this review? No, I don't want people to stuff. Just, hey, if you like the story, please leave a review. That's as far as I'll go when it comes to reviews. So I stay above board, and if anybody leaves me a review, they mostly stay there. So that's how that works. Yeah, Erika.
One thing I'd add, though, is Amazon frowns on reviews from people you have a personal connection with. So, if they trace it that it's coming from the same IP as uploaded the manuscript, and then that same IP is suddenly saying, this is the best book I have ever read, they'll probably think that that's a scam. But bear in mind that Amazon's platform is bigger than just books. If you buy a present for someone and ship it to them directly, Amazon knows that your account paid for that to go to that person. They probably know their Amazon account. If you're giving a gift card, they'll know the email address. If they can link up basically that you have sent something of monetary value to somebody whose email address was used to leave a review, they could infer that this is a personal friend, a family member, someone who's being paid to leave a review. And that could trigger something. So it's not specifically that you can't do it if you've been a reviewer, but it's more that, as you say, you likely develop a very close relationship with your reviewers, beta or proofreading teams, and that relationship then can blur the boundaries of independence when it comes to Amazon's assessment of the reviews. And the risk there is not that the reviewer will be banned from reviewing, but the uploader, the author, could be accused of trying to manipulate the system and have their account banned, even if it was entirely well mentioned. So just something to bear in mind, because Amazon is a black box. We don't know exactly, but err on the side of caution if you're concerned.
And I'm a member of a couple of ARC teams, and so anytime I leave a review based on an ARC, I always include a disclaimer, as well as the other ARC readers that I know, that we did receive a copy for our review, just to make sure that that's up front and people are aware of that.
Yeah, and it's everything is speculation, but as long as you never push it, I mean, Amazon knows me, and I don't ever push that stuff, and I think that's what has kept me above board on all of it. Even though I have my insider team has left reviews, and it's all good because they are honest reviews. So the question is, how many beta readers do you need? What do you think, John?
Typically 4 to 5. That's of the authors that I've worked with. That's typically what we shoot for. When we get down to, with LMBPN's beta process, if we're down to 3 readers, usually we'll go out and try to solicit a couple more to go in, just to make sure that we have good, broad, diverse feedback for the author on that particular manuscript.
I think that's important to get the different viewpoints, and also beta readers. and as I kind of alluded to this up front, is that they need to read in your genre. Getting somebody who's a beta reader, and oh, by the way, here I'm going to throw you dark fantasy. Well, I've never read dark fantasy, but I'll give it a shot. They may not be doing you any favors because the tropes, they just might not be familiar with the tropes. And that's why taking the proofreaders and saying, hey, could you beta for me is a better approach, because hey, they've read this, they've read the stories and haven't yacked uncontrollably. So it's probably okay for what they're good with.
One thing to add, though, is if you have specialist knowledge. So, for example, in a military story, if you're using all different types of firearms, have at least one person on your beta team who's an expert in that area, or at least has a sound working knowledge. If you don't know that yourself, make sure somebody does. If you're writing about, politics, maybe have someone who knows something about the DC scape or whichever political system you're in. Not as difficult for elves and fairies. You don't generally have to recruit a member of the Seelie Court to be on your beta team, but if you can, it might help.
Not the
it is good to get people who know stuff.
Well, and also it's nice to know the language, because when people say fae and bae and things like that, know that you're using that correctly, because that goes to the genre familiarity. So that's important. And firearms and stuff like that, I usually leave it broad in my books. But the latest, I made it very specific, because that's something thriller readers love, the gun porn, I call it. So give the exact model, and hey, rack it, and here's that 6 bullet magazine. Oh yeah, gives a shit. I mean, but anyway, they wanted to read it, so I put it in there. And know your tropes. Know your tropes, people. Now, here's one of the hardest questions that authors generally have to deal with is, how do you guys, and what would you recommend for an author to give guidance regarding how to give feedback regarding a title? Erika, you are so casual and clean and perceptive, and you give the feedback like, oh, please don't, this is all for the greater good, as opposed to like John and just tell you, oh man, I don't know about this.
I guess that speaks to the relationship, Craig. I mean, you and John and the rest of your insider team have worked so closely for a long time. You don't need to pussyfoot around or say, just like, if you want to consider this. Whereas I think that's important as a beta reader to remember, your job is to make a suggestion. It's not your book, it is the author's choice. So as a beta reader, you need to have a thick skin to understand sometimes your suggestions won't make it through. In the best relationships, you'll get feedback as to why that wasn't appropriate. Maybe there's something for another book and another arc that you just haven't seen yet. What I would say is, if you are a beta reader who is continuously getting no feedback, your suggestions are being ignored and you don't know why, it's likely to turn you off working with that author again, because you feel that you're being ignored. Now, there might be a very good reason they're ignoring you, but if you don't get the feedback to explain, that just sours the relationship.
Or it's not the right relationship to begin with. So you're not providing the feedback that the author needs or wants. So it's pointless to continue it. Just move on. So.
And the way I get feedback from my insider team is hey, this slowed down for me. I want general. Hey, here's this, and I found that fixing it is a lot easier if I don't get a recommendation. Hey, you need to do this with this story, and that's one thing I've asked. Please don't do that. Just tell me, hey, here's how it slows down. Or if they're an expert like John has certain knowledge that I don't, and has said, hey, here's how this would work, and I've been able to use that and make it better. But getting the I don't respond well to somebody who says, oh, this is just horrible, and I've had some proofreaders do that to me, where just like, hey, this is horrible, you need to fix this paragraph, and look at it and it's like 2 typos and one miscue. It's like, hey, don't denigrate the whole work over 1 paragraph on a 70,000 word novel, for Pete's sake. Or focusing only on the bad things. And one thing that Kelly O'Donnell does great for us is, and Lynn Stigler, my editor, she's copy and line editor. and she will say, hey, I love this section. Here, this is great. I'm going to copy this quote down, and things like that through the text. And that's something that beta readers can do as well. You don't have to just look for what you think is wrong. And I think that helps establish that relationship, that you're looking at the whole package and not just, hey, I have to find what's wrong with this. Because if you're looking for something wrong, you're going to find it. But if you're looking for, damn, I have to keep reading this, make sure you note that for your author, and that will help build credibility. I put Mickey Cocker's comment on the screen about they have to be truthful. And that's if you have proofreaders that, find a couple typos but butter your muffin all the time. I picked mine because they had issues. They're like, hey, I found these things, but here's a big issue that's like the elephant in the room. You said this about this. You said click to save off your Glock. What the hell are you talking about? And as we all know, Glocks don't have safeties. So it's one of those things. They're calling a magazine a clip. If you're going to deal in gun porn, you have to get the gun porn right. So these little things. So this is why I have my insider team, because they caught that kind of stuff and they said, hey, I got a question about this. Why did this character do this? And you look at it and say, oh, yeah, that's a great catch. So then, hey, can you come over and beta read for me so I can fix this stuff? So when it goes to the proofreaders, they're just finding typos, and the flow and the beats and the characters are consistent. All the good stuff of the story is still good. And then also, I have to say, I've gotten into the position with my proofreaders that once it goes to the proofreaders, I don't see anything. It actually gets taken care of by somebody else after the proofreaders find typos and stuff, because it was soul sucking seeing some of the comments that come through from the proofreading team, because it's 99% a great story, but that 1% is just soul sucking, because it's like, oh yeah, this is wrong, and then all the proofreaders will dogpile you. Yeah, this is wrong. This is wrong. Okay, change the name to Kelly from Erika. Oh, okay, yeah, now it's great. And you're like, oh, fuck, man, you guys beat me down for the Jesus. It's easy to fix. So, sorry, we sometimes use language on this program. But that's as a proofreader, be sensitive to your author, because you can crush their soul. Because once you become trusted and they trust your feedback, you don't want to put yourself in a position where now you've destroyed your author. Hey, I was just trying to help. Understand what what form that takes.
I think this is the role the author has, though, in setting up those expectations. The author is the one establishing the relationship. They need to set the ground rules and expectations first. They also have to be aware, as some people are saying there, what happens if people come back and say, this story is dragging. You've got great world building, but I don't care, and I'm bored by chapter 5. You need to fix this. Are you willing to hear that your baby is ugly? Because if you're not, then you're not ready to publish either. Because if you can't take it from 4 or 5 people, you can't take it from 50,000 or several million on Amazon. So you need to be ready. Right. Maybe you need to put it in the drawer for a couple of months and come back to it when you're not quite so invested in it and you can see it a little bit more perspective. But until you're ready to have the honest conversations, don't put yourself in the position where you'll be responding defensively to comments meant well that you've asked for, because then you're just going to break that trust.
And that's the relationship. And because of the feedback from John and the Insider team, I completely rewrote one of my books, because I sent it out and they're like, this doesn't work. Oh my God, it's a deviation from the style. It takes me out of the story. Every chapter I'm taking out of the story. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Let me go. And I rewrote the whole damn book in 22 hours, 51,000 words. But I wouldn't have done that if I didn't trust them. And that's why I asked for that feedback. And then when they looked at it again, they're like, this works. Thank you. We can deal with that. And even after the rewrite, that's still my lowest rated book out of the entire Terry Henry Walton Chronicles, and lowest number of reviews. So imagine what that would have looked like had I not rewritten it, and people would have stopped reading, and books 8, 9, and 10 would have been irrelevant at that point. And 8, 9, and 10 made me a lot of money because they're longer books as I was trying to wrap the series up. So imagine if I hadn't listened to them and killed off my readership on book 7. So no, this is you have to understand, you have to set those expectations up, and maybe we'll put an example of what that looks like in the comments after we're done with the show. Here's how I set up the expectations for the beta readers on what I want, and that's important.
Yeah,
we have some questions here.
Craig, the other thing.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Interject. We've also tried to encourage people to be specific with their feedback, not just say this sucks, but what is it, both good and bad, specifically that the reader liked about what they just read and what they had issues with what they just read. So in order to provide you as the author with something specific that rather than just a general comment.
It also helps going back to that idea of not just having yes men who say, it's a great book, wonderful book, wonderful book. And you're like, can I trust that opinion? Can I not? If they say, I love the way this relationship developed, I love the tension rising here, this action was amazing. Then you're like, okay, there are specific reasons you like the book. Maybe it is actually a good book, as opposed to you're just a crowd of yes men.
Right.
And that's, you worked out over time where those opinions land, but it can be hard in the early days before you've got that wider social proof to know how well your beta readers are telling you true versus buttering you up.
That's why it's so important to give the good with the bad. Here's what I like, so the author can focus on fixing that which needs fixed. So, and this is, I had one book, it was in the Super Dreadnought series with an AI, an artificial intelligence that ran the ship. And the artificial intelligence got a body. And my co-author made it, he growled or barked his dialogue the whole story. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God. And the beta reader team came back and said, what the hell is this? This is so un-AI-like that I'm completely out of the story by the second page. And it went on for all of the pages. And I'm like, oh my God. So how do we fix this? I said, I don't want to rewrite the whole book. So I went back to page 1 where he gets his new body. And I said specifically, hey, you know what? I've got this new body and I've watched some videos of other starship captains, and they barked, growled, and snarled every time they talked with their crew. So I'm going to try that. And that was it. So 2 sentences, I fixed a whole book that was really kind of fucked up. And then by the end, the last paragraph, I said, I didn't like that. So I'm not going to do that anymore because the crew deserves better. And then all of a sudden, it's all better. But something like that. So leave it to an author to fix something, but listen to your beta readers when something is really out of kilter. And when they say it takes me out of the story, you better listen to them. And especially if they can focus on that one area, go there, reread it yourself with a fresh mind, and do the right thing by your readers, because you'll benefit in the long run. So here's a question: what kind of lead time is best for beta readers? I told you what mine was. On this next book, I'm gonna get beta reader input 10 days prior to when it goes to my editor, because I have the time. Usually they will get it after my editor, but I've written over 100 books, so I have an idea that this is an okay story. This one I have right now, I don't feel that confident, so I want their input to make sure and tweak the flow. I can add a subplot and ratchet up the tension and do things like that. But I need their input to see where it is, because I'm kind of blind to this story because I think it's such a nothing burger. I don't want to read it again. And that's these guys. I'm going to make these guys I will request their assistance in not punishing me by having to do it myself. So that's it. But the beta reader team, I think the earlier you can get them involved with a story that's sound, and this is, you have to know yourself. If your first draft is crap, well, don't give that to them. Do your reread, do your rewrite, and then give it to them, even before it's been to the editor, because if you have to rewrite again, you don't want to have to re-edit, because once again, we want to manage your costs. So what do you guys think? When do you want to be involved? John?
As early as possible. And again, typically in a beta, we will receive the manuscript prior to editing. Usually the author has gone through proofread pass to kind of smooth things out a little bit. But part of the purpose of beta is to make sure that there are no gotchas, that the continuity works, that the characters work, that there's no major flaws in the story premise, those kinds of things. Because if there are, you need to find those early to make sure the author has enough time to fix those things. Not everything can be fixed with a couple of sentences.
And this is especially true when you're looking to stockpile. So we talk a lot about the rapid release strategy. I'm trying to do that as on the author side, to do fairy tales rapid released. So the first one in that series comes out in 2 months' time. It was first gone to the beta team in February 2018, 2.5 years in advance, because then I took the feedback on book 1, brought it into book 2 and into book 3. They've looked at it at each stage along the way. That way I know that I'm not finishing my 3rd book, now send it to the beta reader and find out actually 2 years of work there isn't gonna. No. And now some people write an awful lot quicker, but your time is still valuable. Don't waste it on the wrong thing. Make sure you get the basics right first.
That is excellent advice. Don't waste your time, and don't ask people to do the same work twice. And this is important. And when you're rapid release is the biggest danger for an unpublished author, because you've got to make that. You don't want to write 3 books and the first book doesn't resonate, and then now you've got to rewrite books 2 and 3 along with book 1. So making sure book 1 resonates is so important. And if you have a good beta reading team, then you can make sure that it hits the tropes of the genre that you're trying to target with your marketing and your release. So respect everyone's time and respect each other. The most important thing is the mutual respect. I mean, my insider team does great for me. I appreciate them. They're in all of my books. I list them as, hey, couldn't do this without you guys. And as authors, no one is an island, and no one is, despite whether you think you're a rock and an island, you're not. It's who you surround yourself with that will make you or break you. Let's see. I think we've got another question in here.
There's a second part to that question, Craig, which is about concerns about books leaking into the wild early and beta teams basically being unreliable. That's always a concern, but I think it's also a concern when you publish a book, a pirate site could pull it down, copy it, and put it back up again. In the end, it comes down to trust. Do you trust them?
Yeah.
And if you don't, well, you shouldn't be taking advice from them, so they shouldn't be on your team.
Yeah.
How do you trust them? Get recommendations. If they've worked successfully for an author friend of yours for 2 years and there've been no problems, chances are they're not going to steal your book. There are no guarantees, but you do your due diligence and you hope for the best, and sometimes that's all you get. If they're coming though from within your readership already, people who've emailed you and said, I found these typos, kind of like, oh good, from a proofreading team, and then actually, do you want to come and give me some beta feedback too? They're more likely to be a loyal fan, and a loyal fan won't hurt your brand. So I suppose it's how much time you invest into that beta reader relationship is how you protect yourself from unscrupulous folk.
The thing to look for, and the thing I got from the proofreaders that then fleeted over to help me as my insider team, was when they gave me feedback, I believe with every fiber of my being that it was to help me be better and not about them. Because sometimes, and I get these emails all the time about, oh, hey, if you could do this with this character, your story would be even better. They're kind of making it more about them. And I'd love to tell my friends that I helped out with your book. Yeah, of course you would. And the way to do that is actually help out with the book. So but that's something that only you can decide if somebody is in it for you or for them. And like I said, I have my insider team on every one of my books, 100 and some books, and they're named in there, all of them, because that's it's who I surround myself with, and that's they're critical to my success as an author. So here's a good question, because I will send my insider team a Word doc. They'll use track changes individually and then send it back to me. And what I believe from that is that they don't pollute their input by seeing a Google Doc where they've already seen somebody else's input. And now we also use the process where we have a Google Doc, but that's for the proofreading part of it. For the beta reading, it's each looking at it individually without any outside interference. It's my story and the beta reader personally. So that's how I do it, and I think it works really well. The Google Doc, that makes it easy, so you're not all identifying, hey, look, we've got the same typo. But for beta readers, I like the 4 is enough. I've tried more. I've had 9, and oh my God, what a nightmare consolidating all that input. But 4 works great with Word doc track changes. I've got a 2-screen setup, and that's how I do it. I manually jam the input into my master doc. Then, how do you guys prefer to work?
So we do it both ways, and so I'm on a number of beta teams, and probably split 50-50 between working individually on a Word doc or working collectively on a Google Doc. So it really depends on whether you're working specifically with an author or you're working with one of the indie publishing companies. And it gets down to what works best for the author.
I like that approach. We're helping the author as opposed to make it convenient for me. And I try to make it convenient for you guys, but it still comes down to it's a mutually beneficial relationship, and you guys do a great job for me. What about you, Erika? What do you like to work? How do you like to work it?
For me, I prefer, if I'm proofreading, to be working off a document with track changes, whether that's a Google Doc or Microsoft Word, so I can immediately put in exactly where there's a typo or there's something that needs to be changed, rather than trying to find in a 70,000 word document, it's where you said that and you misspelled it, to point it out directly. But as a beta reader, I don't want to get distracted by things you could put in track changes. I want to read the whole story as a reader and then think about it and say, not in this paragraph, that word confused me, but saying, this is my overall impression of the book. I liked this character. I was ambivalent about this character, didn't really feel they added much. Here's why. This was a bit confusing. There seemed to be a plot hole there as to why they had to do this. Could they not have just taken this shortcut? But to put those ideas in as a separate document going back to the author, because they're overall story thoughts rather than, it gives me a chance to appreciate the whole without input from others, without getting distracted by trying to mark changes as well, immersing myself in the story, and then coming back to critically assess it afterwards and run through the document to check what chapter was that in, that sort of thing. But I've worked both ways, but that's how I find you get more of the real sense of what a reader will feel.
And that is right there why you have a beta team. Get the real sense of what a reader will feel, but then they give you the feedbacks of here's where those areas are problematic. And then as an author, you fix them, and then you cast it upon the waters, and hopefully it brings back lots of fish. So okay, let's see. Okay. Do you guys feel like you're part of the team?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What else? What can authors do to help make you feel like you're part of the team? Erika.
Feedback. When you put the time in to tell an author, here are my thoughts, acknowledge that you've received them, thank them for taking the time to do so, and then if there were specific questions that they raise, like, I'm not really sure where you're going with this, it could be this or could be that, and they're making a comment for you to go and resolve that ambiguity, which you'll do, but also come back and tell them, this is what I intended. Thank you for highlighting that it could have been read a different way, and I've done the following changes. Does that help? Now, you may not want to go back and ask for their approval, of the changes you've made, and that's fine too, but you need to engage with them about, I've made your changes, I haven't. One thing that usually comes up more in proofreading, but where you get people freaking out over where the commas are with the quotes and stuff, because punctuation is different in US English versus UK English. And if you don't know that, you're there thinking, oh my God, this is a mess of it. No, which one is the author using? If you get that feedback and say, listen, actually, you don't need to worry about that, here's why, you don't feel that you're being ignored, and that builds trust. If you feel that you're actually being heard. I mean, I remember the first time I gave feedback on a point, it was a throwaway science joke question where the t-shirt said, don't be a dick, spelled out in letters of the periodic table. I'm like, you can't spell dick from the periodic table. The letters aren't there. So I went back with a suggestion that you could use H, AT, and ER and do don't be a hater instead, and that would work. That made it into the book. When I saw that in the final copy of the book, I'm like, oh my God, I gave some feedback. And it made me feel heard and seen and a part of the team in a really special way. And I went on to read all 8 of those books and provide feedback. I ended up being almost an alpha reader for that series. So that's the power of communication. And if you build that relationship and respond with the betas, they'll feel part of your team and they'll go above and beyond to make your books the best they can be. John?
Yeah, I agree. It's communication. And this is a relationship. And any good relationship needs good communication. The teams that I was briefly part of, there was no communication. So I would get a manuscript, send it back in, no acknowledgement of anything that I did. And it's just not a satisfying relationship. So it's the give and take that you have. It's that communication. You build that relationship. But I think that's important. And I think that gets back to one of the earlier questions about manuscripts leaking in the wild. If you have a good relationship, your people aren't going to leak stuff that they're not supposed to leak. It's just not going to happen.
Another point,
I'll
actually,
give you guys anything you want.
Craig, if I could say.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You spoke before about not wasting people's time and asking them to read the same document multiple times. If things have changed after a beta read, but the beta readers don't read it again, can you send them book 2? But they don't know what changes have been made in book 1. They're going to be confused because maybe the plot has changed slightly. Maybe a character's name is different. They're saying, I don't get it. This looks wrong. They're trying to do continuity against something that doesn't exist. You have to let them know what's changed if you want them to be as effective as they can be. So that would be just talk to your team. Make them part of your team.
And that's one of the best feedbacks I've gotten. It was from John on my Ian Bragg thriller. He was involved as the beta reader and said, hey, I've got these issues. And then I cleaned it up. We went through it, got it edited, and then he was on the proofreading team afterwards. And the best feedback I ever got was when John said it was even better the second time. And so that was it's like, hey, this is a home run. That's the book I wanted to write. One that, hey, it was pretty good the first time, but when you read it the second time, you see stuff you may not have seen the first time, or see how things linked and say, yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. Because thrillers, a lot of time it's one and done. Read it once and you move on because, oh, hey, I was thrilled. And at the end, oh, hey, the twist, cool. And then you move on. Because once you got the twist, the book's useless, but it's not. And this is what I was going for. That rereadability is a great thing for any kind of series, because then, hey, like Kurtherian Gambit, Mike Ridley's masterpiece, people will reread the entire series up to every new release. And one person said, I've reread every book. And Michael said, you got to be kidding me. This is a 21st book. You've reread the whole series 20 times? And she said, yes. So we all want to hear that. She said, yes. Yay, Jared's. My betas are reading now, and my release is October 20th. So I've rushed it closer to release, but that is too stressful. Now, my insider team is extremely responsive because I've kept them involved all through it, and I think they kind of shepherd their time. Hey, here's when it's going to be done. Here's when I'm going to have to read it, and I am spoiled in that usually I'll get feedback within 2 days. So but I've had other teams like my Monster Case Files where I had a different set of proofreaders, and I gave them a week, and it took all 7 days to get that feedback, and then some of them gave it 10 days, 2 weeks later. It was 250,000 words, mind you, but I'm spoiled. So the make sure you just work that into your schedule. Don't run it up where you take so long writing the book that you can't get that honest feedback from your beta readers, and then don't have time to act on it. That's you have to manage your plan. So get your book done when you need to get it done. Let's see, any other questions? Are you encouraged to attend industry events? It's a good question for the team. Erika comes to every event. I kind of blocked out the U.S., so you don't get to come to 20 Books Vegas this year, but otherwise you've pretty much been at every event.
Yeah. That's probably more because I have an author hat as well, or an aspiring author hat. So, but having said that, John, you attend or have attended a lot of the things purely as a beta reader, so perhaps you can give a better perspective of.
Both Craig and LMBPN encourage us to attend 20 books specifically, because those are the key ones that we would attend. In preparing for the panel for the upcoming 20 books, I sent emails out to probably a dozen authors or so, just soliciting from them if they were going to have any of their beta team members that would be attending 20 Books Vegas this year. And there wasn't a single author that came back that said yes. So I was a little surprised that more readers aren't attending, but it is an author-oriented event. Craig and LMBPN are definitely very good at encouraging us to attend.
Come to Vegas. We'll take you to dinner. We'll give you signed books. We'll do those things that because they are a critical members of our team, and it takes a team to write a book. Even though it's you sitting there at your computer, it takes a team to publish a book. I guess I should correct. Now, here's why do beta readers volunteer their time to do this? John.
I enjoy doing it. Pure and simple. It's fun for me to do. I enjoy it. I'm retired, so I can invest my time wherever I want, and so this is one of the areas that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy the interaction with the authors and the teams that I work with. So for me, it's fun.
And Erika, you have a day job and you're writing a book, a series.
Yeah, so I joined beta reading because I was a whale reader who started a series and ran out of books and said, I need more. So one of the perks for me was early access. And then, okay, you get a chance to provide feedback, and then my feedback was useful, and I saw things happening in books that were based on things I had said. And it was this sense of, no, it's not my book. Well, I know I have helped make that book better. And then you see it do well. We all have a sense of ownership, I suppose, in the series that we've been part of. And so there's that sense of camaraderie also within the teams. And that depends also how you set up your teams. Is there a way for the team to communicate without the author? So we have a meet, and that way we can talk to each other, discuss the books, separately from giving feedback to the authors. So it's not just kind of the spider version where the author's in the middle and everyone comes into them. It's honeycomb where there's a team dynamic among the betas as well as with the author. And that's great. And then from a purely selfish point of view, as a beta reader, I get to read really strong books by really great authors who are making bank. I get to see what it looks like in its raw state, the types of things other people struggle with and how to avoid them. I learn from beta comments of my fellow betas, things I can look out for to make my own writing better. when you see things coming back from beta, and then you see the edited version in JIT, which is our proofreading group, like, that's the difference editing makes. These things I should look out for when I'm working on my own work. And I think that, so there's a selfish aspect of it's an apprenticeship. If you have aspirations of writing yourself, having a chance to study with people so much further ahead of you on that mountain gives you a chance to learn if you're willing to approach it in the right way. So that's been my take.
I like that. I like that. Let's return back to that, because we keep talking about feedback and the back and forth. You as a beta reader, how do you like to get the setup? What is some phraseology that an author can use to set their beta reading team up and themselves up for success? Like for me, I ask very specifically, please check the flow and the tempo, and very specifically tell me where you get taken out of the story. Highlight those paragraphs where at this point in time I feel like I want to stop reading. And that is so critical. Then what are some other ways a author can ask for your feedback? Erika.
Do you like this character? It's a very simple question, but oftentimes we don't think to ask it. Some characters are natural or intentionally annoying to start with, and they have a growth arc. If they are too annoying or narcissistic or whatever bad trait at the start that they're going to grow out of for too long, you might lose a reader. So have you given them enough redeeming features? Have they saved the cat early enough that you care about them? If there's a love interest introduced, do you actually like them? Or do you just think, why would you end up with that person? That's a dreadful idea. If you don't like the characters, even the bad characters, because there are characters we love to hate, but if you just hate them, if you just think, ugh, they just annoy me every time they're on the page, not in a good way, just in a, this makes me not want to not read the book, you've missed the mark, because presumably you don't want to write a book about a character no one can love except yourself, unless you're Jane Austen, in which case you'll get away with it.
That's different.
Yeah.
You're not Jane Austen.
No.
What about you, John?
It gets back to communications. And so if you're, as the author, looking for specific feedback, say it. And, you do. And so most of the time at the alpha or beta level, that the authors that I work with, if they have specific questions, they'll state those specific questions. There are a couple of authors that I work with that have a whole list of questions that run through story, character, world building, and then overall, did it all come together for you? And a lot of sub-questions within those, as we've talked about, flow, pacing, premise, etc. And so making sure that your readers know what it is that you have key concerns about is really helpful. The other aspect is what does work, because we need to make sure that, as readers, we're not only here providing, this sucks, but also, hey, this worked, and this is why it worked for me. I like this. The pacing was good. It really flowed well, etc. So it's both. It's got to be some give and take in here.
and that's important. Good with the bad. Gotta show some good, because if all you ever put is here, this is what's wrong with your story, then you're forcing the author to read between the lines of, okay, well then everything else worked. I just assume it's good. And you know what happens when you assume? You make an ass of you and umption. Let's not do that. There's some questions for me as an author that John had gathered. What do I look for in a beta reader? I think I've asked that. What information we've answered that. Do I receive different information from each of my beta readers, different feedback? And that is yes, absolutely I do. And sometimes it's diametrically opposed. The one in my recent thriller, I had three of the, but we ganged up on the other guy, so it's okay. We had three of the beta readers say, this character works great. This is a realistic impression of how she responds in these situations, and we see her growth and the challenges. And one of the beta readers said, this is completely unrealistic. And as an author, you just have to you have to make a decision, because if you get opinion A and opinion B and they're diametrically opposed, you got to pick one. You can try to balance it, but generally when you make a compromise like that, the compromise is, what is my target readership? And my target readership is something a little bit different. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this decision based on, this is how I intend to market this book, because I took off my author hat and put on my business hat and say, I've got my marketing plan and it fits the demographic. So let me go with this, and let me appeal to these folks in this age group and in this gender, because they're the biggest readers. So always target women over 40, because that is the biggest group of readers out there. It's math and business. Don't do any kind of gender bending on me or anything like that. It doesn't. Women over 40. Just look at the marketing potential, and everything else is gravy beyond that. So anyway, that's why I wrote that book the way I did. How do you decide which reader's feedback to accept, ignore? I take it all in and I look at it through the eyes of the reader, because this is the important thing. And then I overlay it on the marketing demographic, and it's a Venn diagram. Most of the Venn is the marketing, and then the beta readers, I want to get as much over into the marketing as I can. If it's a small thing, well, then I missed. And then I either change the marketing plan or I change the book. So those are your choices when it comes to your stories. Because once you finish writing it, now it's no longer your baby. It is a product to be sold. So you can build your product so you can sell it the way you're used to selling everything, all your other books, or you can change your product to fix the marketing plan, or change your marketing plan to fix a product. That's really your only two choices. How do you know if a reader's any good? They make your story better. And that will be, the test of that will be after you publish it and you start getting reviews, you start getting feedback. I love this book. I love this. I love this aspect. Or like where Erika had noted that she made a periodic table of the elements joke, and somebody puts that in her comment. I love this joke. And it's like, hey, there it is. So this is there's validation for the reader as well as the author and the team that it made the book better. So that's external validation. Once you publish a book, that's really the only validation you get, unless it's a passion project. I want to write this book. I don't care if anybody likes it. That's great. Don't expect to make any money off it. And if it does, gravy. And if it doesn't, well then, hey, you have your passion project, embrace it and hug it and do that. But if you want to sell it, if you want to see value from your words, then you need that external validation. You need people to pay money for your book. So that's the author putting the business hat on once again. Oh, look, 58 minutes. I am through the questions. And somebody asked a question, what do you do to recognize your beta readers? I put them in my book. We have dialogues. I will send them Omaha steaks on occasion, and I'll send Amazon gift cards on occasion. And it's always feedback. And then we have a good time in Vegas. Last year, I was pulled 3 different ways and thought I was going to die because my heart was ready to give out on me. But Michael Anderle stepped up and took great care of the beta team and the proofreaders with a dinner and various events. So it's let them know that you appreciate them, and that works for everybody. I know some people pay their beta readers and have a professional team. The only difference I see is if you manage that relationship differently. Because if you pay your beta readers or pay your proofreaders and you treat them as employees, they're going to act as employees. If you treat them as trusted insiders and friends, even if you're paying them, you're going to get better input. You're going to get better feedback, and that's a basic leadership question. Before I started writing full time, I worked 7 years as a leadership coach for Fortune 500 companies. And so this is the thing. If you treat people like employees, you're going to get what you're going to get. But if you treat them like trusted, valuable members of the team, even though there are employees, if you're paying them, you're going to get better input, especially if you put them in your book saying, hey, these guys are critical to my book and critical to this story, then they are a part of the team and they'll embrace that and they will do better for you because they're doing better for themselves. And it, like John said, I appreciate doing that. I like doing this. Don't make it where it's a job where he no longer likes doing it. And this is some of the things I've seen some stuff. I've asked you to beta read some stuff, and a couple of team members said, "This isn't my thing. I'm not reading this," and it's perfectly fine. So we move on to other things like the monster case files. You guys have already read that twice, and by the time after I rewrote it, I'm like, I'm not going to send this to you guys. I'm not going to punish you that way. We don't punish our beta readers. Even though they may feel like it, especially this next book I give you, you guys will all abandon me after this one, I expect, but I'll send you more steaks.
Hey, I like pricing strategies. That was an interesting read.
Yeah, the rewrite actually came out pretty well. I was pretty happy with that. You guys were critical the first time around to help make it good. Any final questions? The beta readers are... Here's people looking to get on the John and Erika train, leaving the station. Doot, doot. What kind of material do you guys like, John?
I read primarily science fiction, urban fantasy, classic fantasy.
And he loves Craig Martelle thrillers only. Just me.
And especially
Especially
new Ian Bragg series from Craig Martelle, out September 20th, I believe.
Oh no, it's November 30th actually.
November 30th. Why do we have to wait so long?
Because I want to use some lyrics from Rush in there. And I waited until the book was finished so I could send it to the team, the Rush legal team. So they had the whole book as it was in its best form to see where I was going to insert the lyrics. And then I requested licensing and they said 4 to 6 weeks. And I also want to do a simultaneous release of the audiobook. And that takes, I don't have my narrator until mid-October. So that's why it's November 30th. We have it on pre-order, but you guys have seen the final version unless Rush lets me license those lyrics, and then I get to put those into the book, and then that's what the narrator will read. So I need 4 to 6 weeks for that licensing agreement. Then the narrator gets that copy. And he just suggested this morning, he's like, is there any way we can get Geddy Lee to read those lyrics within the book? And I'm like, oh my God, all we can do is ask. so lyrics narrated by Geddy Lee, and and the rest by Chris Abernathy. Have a nice day. So Chris, thinking outside the box. I like that. Narrator working with me, one of the team. Come on, go team, go team. But that's why the long lead time, because once he narrates it and we get it approved, now we have Audible or ACX's approval time, which I hope it's only a month and not 6 months like some people have experienced lately. But hopefully it's only a month. But that's where it's good to be me, and I'll leverage me, and hopefully we'll be able to get it through a little quicker. So I thank you guys. It's been 63 minutes talking about beta readers and everything that beta readers. I tell you what, and somebody asked a question. One of the things was, if you have good beta readers, do you need a developmental editor? And a developmental editor goes to the source of your story and your approach. Did you create the right tension? Did you create the dilemma? Is this the hero's journey? Is this the three-act play? And that's where when your beta readers are reading it from a reader's perspective, they may not know the cool, sexy developmental editor terms, but they'll know what it should look like if it's good. And this is where, as an author, you need to understand, here's what they're saying when they're saying this. They're saying in this part of the hero's journey, there's no tension. There was no dilemma up front on what the hero is trying to resolve. You're too slow in building it up. You need to move that. And it might only be a few sentences, but it's one of those things that this is what your developmental editor, but this is what my beta team does for me, is they act as developmental editors because they will know something's missing. I don't know what I'm looking for here. I mean, Jim gives me great feedback at that, because he's like, I finished the first chapter and I don't know where it's going. You should. One of the things within the first paragraph, you should know, here's what's going to happen in this book. It's the best of times, it's the worst of times. Okay, hey, the rest of the book goes to answer that question. There you go. Bob's your uncle, right, Erika? Even if he's not. So anyway, we're going to call it a day. 65 minutes. Thank you very much. I'm going to get tooth replaced today. Cool. Good for me. Yay. Mouth hurts.
Good luck.
All right, you guys. Thank you very much for coming on and talking about beta readers. If I can find my request to my beta readers, here's what I'm looking for. I'll paste that into the comments after we finish. We'll cut it over to YouTube. Thank you very much. This was episode 98 on a Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. And then 99 and 100 coming up. We'll do something special for 100. We'll run a bunch of giveaways. I'll give away books, audio books. Michael buy people stuff. Jesse Ray barbecue or something. Who knows what. And we'll enjoy the 100th episode of the CNM show coming up. Thank you guys again for being on, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. Take care.